And when people ask me, like, what's one reason, Dr. Brian, I should go to a meeting or therapy? I say, if there's one word, you gave me only one word, it's accountability. That's it. Right? Yes, you can have fellowship, commitments, and all those other things, but accountability is, at the end of the day, the element that's going to be critical for people with long-term success. So.
What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the #1 mental health and addiction podcast, the Hopeaholics. I am your girl, Natalie Eva Marie, and these are my boys.
I'm Chad.
Hi, I'm Shane.
Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and follow us on our socials and wherever you get your podcasts.
Got a new episode dropping every Monday and Thursday. Please come check it out.
This episode is brought to you by the Infinity Group. You guys, if you or a loved one is suffering, please call us today. The number is right here on the screen. We are here for you 24/7. Now, let's get into the episode.
Let's just pretend like I'm in the Middle East, and I'm just going to go, hi, this is Dr. Brian. 'Cause in the Middle East, we just use first names.
Yeah, that
This is
works.
Dr. Brian. He's a psychologist.
Correct.
Wrote this wonderful book, which is really quite incredible, man, because I'm just reading 25 must-knows. You don't dummy it down. You really take it seriously, because a lot of people will get scared by seeing 25 must-knows.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of work to bring your loved one back from mental health issues.
So that's how we're starting.
Well, I don't know.
Did we start?
I don't know. I was just...
Dr. Brian, welcome to the
Yeah.
Hopeaholics podcast.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's
Yes.
go.
I mean, since you already brought up the book,
Yeah.
I want everybody to
Heads up.
get a nice little picture
Yeah.
of this.
Definitely start off when somebody brings a book with
Have
the
to.
book, because you don't want to wait till the very end.
No.
Because the way we go on and on sometimes on these podcasts, nobody, only my mom and
My mom,
and your mom
for sure.
watch it to the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Who did
That's
the
true.
artwork?
So we have a guy. His name is Chuck. He is like kind of our designer for our studio and other projects that we do. We have a stage downstairs that looks just like our podcast. We'll show it to you guys when we after take you on a tour.
Okay, Brian, I want to know, or Dr. Brian, excuse me, what sparked you to go into addiction to begin with? Yes, we have this amazing book, and I think it's a really large topic for a lot of our listeners as well, because I think that's the hardest thing to be a loved one and watch, whether it's a spouse, your best friend, your sibling, etc., and see them dying, and then at the same time resisting needing, treatment. And so, like, I always use the phrase, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I think that is very difficult for the non-addict or the non-person that is struggling with the disease to watch somebody that they love basically kill themselves. So I think the book itself, which we'll dive into for sure, but I wanted to kind of get into a little bit about you and like what made you even want to tackle something so so grandiose, because obviously there's a lot of people out there that don't think addiction is a disease, which we have obviously had a lot of other doctors that are completely go with the fact that it is a disease within the brain. So tell us about yourself and what made you want to get into something so kind of a wild ride, I guess you can say.
Got it. Yeah. Well, thank you all for having me here as well. Thank you so much. What you're doing is huge, right? The recovery world, we know mental health,
Sure.
substance addiction is at an all-time high level. So when I came across what you all do, I was like, wow, I need to connect with them. So I want to say that up front.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank
Awesome,
you.
man.
So for me, I am a California licensed psychologist. I have my PhD, and I worked a lot with substance recovery. I give a lot of talks to the National Alliance Mental Illness, also part of recently Parents of Addicted Loved Ones, PALS. And so I really enjoy knowledge forums and any type of opportunities to spread mental health awareness. And so my clinical training was actually in Oklahoma, and got my PhD there and more of a generalist. And then I started working and specialized in insomnia. And it was
wow.
back to your question of how I got involved with substance abuse. it was just an opportunity. When I moved from Oklahoma, I needed more postdoctoral hours, and so I linked up with a psychiatrist, and he was opening up a treatment facility. And so I was there, did a lot of my postdoctoral internship there, and got a lot of clients, highly mental acuities, bipolarity, schizoaffective, schizophrenia, and high-level substance abuse issues. And that's where I got a lot of my really hardcore level of clinical experience. I was also, during my treatment, in addition for my treatment program, through my clinical training, I definitely worked with a lot of clients from the community who struggled with substance use issues, but that was definitely where I got heads in. I did individual therapy, group therapy, part of the treatment team there. So that's kind of a nutshell of how it happened, but it's so critically important. If you're a clinician these days and you don't have in-depth clinical experience with substance use disorder, you are definitely behind the 8 ball in that regard.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it is definitely at an all-time high, like you said. I mean, just fentanyl. And, the drugs are way more powerful than they were in the 90s when I used drugs. I will say that I did use drugs in the early 2000s and again in the 10s. And the psychosis that came from the meth, I was refunded a full-blown meth-induced psychosis. And I have worked in a substance use disorder. I just call it addiction treatment because I'm really, really old school. I'm all the way back to the early 2000s. I have seen such a change in the acuity of the patients, clients that come into treatment, much, much higher, much more mental health issues going on these days. Is that what you're seeing?
For sure, on all those points. Just the THC conversation alone is one of the most prominent where across the board, because THC, right, levels 6% back in the day, and now you get it with dabs and wax, you're getting 90%, and we are seeing a lot more THC-induced psychosis and substance-induced psychosis in treatment. And so for your listeners out there who aren't aware, psychosis is simply a detachment from reality, and that can come in the form of hallucinations, delusions, and there's many ways to get psychotic. But I would say, at least in the work that I've done in my treatment capacity, I would say, this is just in my statistic, about 70% of those people who present with psychotic features is a substance-induced psychosis. And then you get, at least in my experience, 20 to 30% of those have an actual psychotic disorder, such as schizophrenia or schizoaffective. Wow. And usually, working with adults, usually that's been diagnosed prior. Wow. There was a family history, or maybe during their teen years or early adult years that they've been in treatment or in care for those psychotic features. But now, is that a positive news for people? I guess in that regard, yes, is that if someone stops using their substance, usually when medication is appropriate, that those symptoms will dissipate over time. But yes, definitely the accessibility of substances, the advances in the potency of substances has definitely made it really a big issue.
I also I want to dive into the THC, because the THC has and from my experience in working in treatment has actually, and I don't know, which it is. I'm kind of curious of what you think. The THC has pushed people over the edge into a full-blown psychosis or full-blown schizophrenia or whatnot. And my question is or my wondering, more so than a question, was this person going to become this anyways? Would they have stayed normal had they not ever used the THC, the potent THC? And was that what pushed them over the line, or did it push them sooner?
All of those. So you hit some good points, actually. Did you read my book? You can look at all it's a lot of the points in my book. So one of the things when I give these talks, right, is I say up front, I'm not against certain substances, right? Alcohol, opiates, THC even, because there are people out there
Sure.
who can engage in those substances and not be problematic, right? There's people that can have a glass of wine with their seafood and not become dependent. There's people who can take a regimen of opiates for a surgery and not get addicted or transition to heroin. There are people who can engage in THC for insomnia, anxiety, and not become overly dependent on it. What I tell people a lot, especially family members or people who are kind of have reservations, is that if you have a family history of addiction, you yourself have an addiction history, where you have an underlying psychiatric condition, a mind-altering substance such as the ones I mentioned, in addition to many more, can make you more sensitive to an underlying condition, can worsen existing symptoms, or bring about the onset of a condition sooner than later. And so that's the answer to your question. You hit about all of those. It's hard to say what would or what haven't, but my belief is substances are just a sophisticated coping tool, right, to some other way of attaining relief. It is what I talk about in one of my must-knows, the reason why people use substances. I don't know if you recall that as one of my must-knows, but 3 words. Can I ask you, any of you, if you don't mind, what your 3 words would be, why people chronically use substances? Just simple 3 words.
Just 3 words?
Just 3 words. Don't think too hard.
It's an I am. For me, it's an I am.
Okay.
And then add the 3rd word, whatever.
It's
Okay.
numb.
Feel better now.
There you go.
Okay. Natalie, you had one?
Numb your current reality.
Yes. Yeah.
Those are all very correct. I take it on a broader level is because it works, right? It works for what it was originally
Damn,
intended.
I had 4.
Because for what it was originally
Sure.
intended. But over time, as you become
Yep.
tolerant, it becomes counterproductive, dysfunctional. And when I tell that to family members, they said, do you know why your loved one used meth? Do you know why you use heroin? Because it works. That's why you're using heroin and not alcohol. Or use alcohol versus THC is because it works for what it was intended, and usually that's pain relief.
Yeah.
Whether it be emotional, physical pain relief. And so when I ask that question, no one gets it in the exact 3 words. They say all, like you did, they say all the symptoms underneath that umbrella. But when you take it on a broader level, because it works, right?
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely 110% true, coming from somebody who has a substance use disorder.
Or else we wouldn't be using.
Yeah. So I want to, because my first substance was alcohol. My second substance was THC. My third substance, which got me addicted, was methamphetamine, and it was when I did my first line of meth. They called it speed back in my days in 1988. We didn't call it meth. Sounds so much scarier, meth, but just this speed, right? When I did it, I literally asked myself and my friends, why didn't somebody tell me about this sooner? All of my symptoms went away. My needing to overeat, the emotional pain and trauma that I had, the inability to stay focused on a task, all of that was gone. My laziness, all of it, gone in the blink of a line, in the sniff of a line, if you will. And I immediately was addicted from that day forward.
And that's what happens when you latch onto something. I call it the life preserver, right? But it's dysfunctional life preserver is you aren't open-minded to any other alternatives, right? Whether it be the gym workout, mindfulness techniques, therapy, is that becomes the one solution. And it's that life preserver. And that's why a lot of people that go into treatment, that's why you see them leave or relapse within the first 30 days.
Yeah.
Is because they are fearful you are taking away that life preserver, what they truly believe has kept them alive. I've had several clients say, I don't know how I'm going to function in school when I've been smoking marijuana since I was a child. There's no way I can get through meth when that's what I've been using throughout in graduate school. And that's what's scary for them. And treatment, part of it is help them develop a healthy life preserver filled with coping skills and a variety of other tools that they can use. But that's why, and so that's valid, right? Is because that's what they believe is what's keeping them afloat.
Whoa. This, your must know. is wild because they're very simplistic little things that I think are so important, where even myself, because addiction runs like super heavy in my family. I'm Mexican Italian, so it's very, very prevalent. And number 19 says no to keep playing. I'm kind of derailed our little earlier conversation, but I think this is important. No to keep planting the emotional seeds. This is huge because for me, even being an addict and having a sibling that just like can't see the light, right? I'm like, fuck you, dude. Like, I'm done. But then now reading your number 19, to plant the seed, no matter what, to always send a text to let them know that the door is always open and that I'm praying for you and that I love you.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that's what it is. It's my brother, so it's difficult to see somebody continue to not drink the water when you want them so badly, considering the whole family has, kind of seen other people in the family get better. This is a big one because people end up in, especially for, I guess, parents, their kid in jail, or they're needing to use the example of bailing out your child. And one of your clients remembers getting those text messages from his mother. And that's a huge one because my mom was sending or writing actually letters to myself and my oldest brother when we were incarcerated. So I never looked at it that way, which is actually bizarre because you would think like, yeah, of course, let them know. But it's easy to get upset or have kind of angry.
Yeah. And if I can talk a little bit about for listeners out there, what I exactly mean by planting those emotional seeds, and thank you for bringing that up. And actually the case that you just brought of a family member that you had is an exact one from a mother to a son. So if I can back up a little bit, there's great concepts out there. And a lot of what I do in my book is clarify some of those very well-meaning concepts. The biggest one is use tough love.
Yeah.
Right. And so tough love is very well-meaning. It's for those families that, gosh, there's nothing I could do. We got to get tough on this. And then a lot of the groups, and I work with people, they take it as tough love equals to tough luck, meaning we're done with you. We don't want anything to do with you. You get healthy, and then you come back to us. And one of the things I say is, as you know, with mental health, if you have someone who's suicidal, like hopeless, abandoned, that is a precursor to giving up hope, right? And those extreme consequences where they can end their life or do something drastic. And so what I call it is assertive love. Assertive love is the nice balance between having rules in relationship. And if you think of any relationship that you have that's very functional and effective, I can nearly guarantee you there's a nice balance between rules, relationship, which is the intimacy, that closeness, and rules, which are those boundaries, right? Whether it be with your spouse, is that you're close and very intimate with one another, but I could guarantee you there's certain things you can do or not do, things you can say and not say. And so that's where that assertive love comes from. And so the emotional seeds, when I work with a lot of families, it's not that we're done with you, we're just done supporting this unhealthy lifestyle. Is that we're going to love and always care for you. We just can't continue to support this lifestyle that you're living because we are doing more harm than good. Okay, and so that's where the planting the emotional seeds is we can keep planting those seeds in the form of a text, a message. And back to what you were referring to, there was an actual mother whose son was struggling with heroin. She had to kick him out of the house, but she kept texting him, hey, I love you, thinking about you, I'm praying for you. And he told me, while in treatment, it was the ultimate buzzkill because he's about to use a line, snort a line, and it's like, oh God, my mom just texted me, I love you. And he said it was a collection of those emotional messages that got him to one day say, I'm done. I want to try something different. And so that's where the planting those emotional seeds is they're powerful. We think those people aren't hearing it, whether they're homeless, they're psychotic. Those seeds are planting, and they may germinate at the right time. But don't ever think that love ever ceases, and you can still communicate that, but with healthy boundaries as well.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
I think your book is so really. I mean, it says it on the
Well, the
That's
title
what
of the book,
refreshing, man, because there's a lot of
How
people
to
that
Get
struggle.
Your Resisting Loved One into Treatment. What I was going to say is one of the most important bottoms that we as addicts can hit is that ultimate emotional rock bottom where you're like, I can't do it anymore.
Yep.
You know, you feel so alone, afraid. Shame is huge. It can be a huge motivator of you staying out there, but it can also be a huge motivator of you picking up that phone, that 1,000-pound phone, and saying, "Hey, I need help. I can't continue living like this." And knowing that somebody out there, you might feel alone, but knowing that somebody out there, like a mom or your loved one, is saying, "Hey, you know, I don't want you around right now, but I love you," and it can be such the game changer.
Yeah.
I think this is so refreshing though for the non-addicts that are trying to help the addict, because they're the ones that we have a 12-step program that we walk through, and I think what often gets missed is that there is a lot of trauma and stuff that we put amongst our loved ones. This right here, it walks you through what the disease will tell you. And I think that is huge for like a mom or a dad or a spouse to actually read, because if you don't comprehend what is happening to your child or to your loved, like your spouse, it's very hard to conceptualize, because when you have lung cancer, you can see that like on your doctor tells you, and you can see that up on an x-ray, you know, where addiction from a substance or to alcohol is very difficult for a normal person to understand. If there are bad consequences that continue to happen in your life, just stop drinking. My husband's a normie, and he says, I mean, he understands the disease and is all for it, hence why I'm out here and doing what we're doing. But in his logical brain, amongst others, when he didn't know the disease, it's like, hey, dummy, if you wind up in jail when you pick up this and that, just stop doing it. So reading something like this, it really is nice to have something where somebody can actually read it and understand like what the disease may tell you. As simple as that may sound, it's hard to even conceptualize that in your own brain when you're watching somebody that you love kill themselves. And then to see why it's so important. It's like, it's very, I don't want to say dumbed down, but a little bit to really understand what's going on with that individual.
Yeah.
I really.
And there's a poem in there. You work in recovery. You may have come across it, but it's one of the most powerful poems I've ever come across. It's called "I Am Your Disease." But when you Google "I Am Your Disease," there's a lot of poems that have that title, "I Am Your Disease." But that one particular is the only one I resort to, and it's very powerful. And every time I read it to a client group or family members, short of saying it emotionally triggers them, is because they can relate to us. Because this author, she remains anonymous other than her first name, is that she conceptualized the disease as an intimate relationship. And then the way she describes the disease and what function it has is huge. But also she also gives the game plan, as if the disease took the pen and said, this is how you can manage me. So it's a very powerful poem, also for people who struggle, but also for family members who may not get it, because it gives you a preview of that battle, that war that someone is enduring. And by the way, I really like those words, because I write in there that some of the best words you can ever hear from an individual is "I am done." Right? Not done living, but I'm just done with this lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then some of the best words family members can say is "we are done." Not done loving you, but we're just done with this lifestyle. And so that's what it is the rock bottom is another one that I say, because there's a lot of people that look at rock bottom as what is rock bottom, and there's all different sayings where you can't dig anymore. But I reconceptualize it as putting yourself to the point of level of desperation. The family members, because when you are desperate, you'll do almost anything, and then you give them that option, right? You're going to get help, you're going to go to jail or go to treatment, you're going to be homeless or come home if you follow these expectations that we have laid out for you. That's what the focus is how can family members re-empower themselves, and from a loving place still put their loved one who's highly resistant to a point of desperation where their only option is this or that, is because you give the option still to the struggling person. Because whenever you tell someone what they can and cannot do,
Exactly.
we resist. You can't drink anymore. You can't use anymore. No. You can do what you want, but this is what I'm going to support, not support.
Yeah. Beautiful. My favorite gift that I was given, and I hope that everybody out there who's struggling with the disease of addiction or alcoholism, I hope that they all receive it as well. And it is exactly what you said, the gift of desperation.
You have to.
I was given the gift of desperation, and you know, I was so desperate that I wanted help. You know, regardless of what I had to go through, because it's not easy. You know, I would be lying if I sat up here and told people that walking through the first part of your recovery journey was easy. You know, I would and everybody's is different. Some people's it is more easy, but it is going to be painful at times. And that pain is going to be severe, and you're going to feel like you want to give up. But I can assure people that if you don't give up, if you just hang on 5 more minutes, you know, they say in Alcoholics Anonymous, don't give up 5 minutes, but don't leave 5 minutes before the miracle happens.
Exactly.
And I always also say, like, it's always darkest before the dawn, and sometimes the pain is the worst right before the beautiful part of this journey begins. So just hang on, and get the attitude of I'm not going to pick up no matter what. You know, and you get that with the gift of desperation.
And on that level, as well, as you all realize, is when you can teach someone to actually invite discomfort.
Yeah.
You move to discomfort. That anybody who's excelled in any area of their life,
100%.
they have gone through discomfort, whether it be in the gym. What are the biggest, most important repetitions? The 1 to 2 failures,
Yeah.
right? Anybody that's gotten to a level of success, whether it be recovery, athletics, education, is that they've gone through a level of pain and suffering and desperation. Actually, the CEO and owner of NVIDIA Technology Group, he said to a graduating class of Stanford, he said, if you're not suffering, I'm concerned about you. Because he believes that's where a lot of growth takes place, is through pain and suffering and desperation. So I'm glad you brought up that point as well.
I couldn't agree with him more. You know, I tell people, get ready, just learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
And that's for everybody. Anybody that you ever listen to speak, anybody that's a guest speaker at a college, anybody that's speaking at a CEO of a business, anybody that is an amazing athlete, anybody that in any field, they are saying the same exact thing. It's not like it's an overnight thing. They've had to go through adversity of some sort. They've had to walk through a lot of uncomfortable situations, meaning like, did they want to wake up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym? No. But did they? Yes. And are they able to, you know, then push and excel into now talking about their journey? Because when you're in the thick of it, it sucks. But what that does is all that pain, all that uncomfortable, all those early mornings or practices or late nights at the office or whatever it may be that you're trying to strive for, it's building your character. It's building all of that pain that you're able to, it's testing you. And then that's why you have your testimony. It's like that's God is doing that for people to actually walk through. It's individuals that don't want to walk through the pain or the adversity end up staying just stagnant in where they're at and not moving forward and not progressing in anything. That's why I really liked your how you're very much like mind, body, soul. Like you're obviously jacked. Obviously the gym is important. I believe that coincides with your mental health. Breaking a sweat, getting in the gym, moving your body, having that movement, it's all relative. It all plays a major factor into how we feel about ourselves, whether it's self-esteem, but also the neuroplasticity that it's doing in our brain. People like to make it so much more difficult.
I'm callous in my mind, man.
But I mean, it's true.
Who's that? David
It's
Goggins.
true.
Do you know that why is Bruce Lee saying when someone asked him, how many push-ups do you do, Bruce Lee?
Yeah.
I don't remember what his answer was. I remember that question though.
He said, "I don't start counting
Until it hurts.
Until it
it
hurts.
still starts hurting." Right.
Yeah.
May I say something else?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, of the reason where mental resilience comes from too is in addition to the gym, and so a lot of people in recovery participated in it.
Sure.
But I'm a competitive Brazilian Jiu-jitsu athlete.
Yeah.
So talk about discomfort. Talk about being put in uncomfortable situations, and I think that's why a lot of people in recovery start practicing that, because number one, it's another form of addiction. It's just this. You're learning neuroplasticity and so forth, but the level is probably the best shape I've ever been in physically and mentally.
Sure.
Is because of that push beyond limits where you feel like you want to tap out. And when you don't tap out, each time you do, you're able to take that pain a little bit more or that discomfort a little bit more. You increase that threshold. And that's what I believe. We all have, I call it the dynamite. Let's say this is dynamite and this is the flare, or not the flare, but
Fuse.
the fuse. Is that, when some people go to treatment, this is their fuse. Right? Anything they pop off, they're going to relapse or have an angry outburst or whatever else. And your job is to increase that threshold. Everyone has that threshold, no matter what. Doesn't matter how much you've been through. It's just that, is yours here or is it here? And that's, I think, one part of treatment is to help them increase that level of ceiling before they tap out.
Yeah, because you can put that. But the longer the fuse is, the more chance you have of putting that not out before the dynamite goes off.
Yeah. And
I like it.
do you know who Marcus Luttrell is? If I may
Yeah,
say?
of course.
Marcus Luttrell.
Yes.
Can I say, just in case your listeners aren't familiar? Who
Yeah, of
Marcus
course.
Luttrell-
Yeah, they can watch a movie about him.
Okay, so the lone survivor, Marcus
Yes.
Luttrell, was based on the Navy SEAL team that went for recon in Afghanistan, and they got discovered. And so Marcus Luttrell was the head of that Navy SEAL team. And obviously for him, in his story, he had a broken back, broken leg, but he crawled for about 7 miles when his whole team died. And obviously, many of us, I would imagine, would have tapped out a long time before that. But yet, even him, he talks about at the very end where he was just waiting for some enemy, the Taliban, to approach him, and he was ready to just give it so he'll fight to the end. But even he had his threshold where he was near that end, but he was dying, but that's where his tapping out point was. And so, like I said, no matter what you've been through, but the great thing is you can train to increase that emotional, physical threshold. You can, and by inviting discomfort. And so anxiety is one of those, right? Anxiety is worrying about the future and future. I have a tournament coming up this Saturday, and I'm already anxious about it.
Sure.
The thought of going out there and potentially losing
Yep.
or potentially being choked out or what have you is anxiety provoking. But I know after the end of it, there's even times I question, like, why am I doing this? I'm at a tournament, I'm like, why am I here?
Yeah.
But at the end of it, it is so exhilarating. Talk about a dopamine rush. Is like, wow, because I know what comes along with that is that the level of pain and emotional threshold has advanced for me. And so, yeah, for all your listeners out there, invite discomfort. It's good for you. It's data, it's information, and the pathway to expand yourself physically and mentally.
Well, that's going on piggybacking on what you say, like, the callousing of the mind. But like Dr. Huberman says, it's an actual proven within that like neuroplasticity of our brain. So you doing something that you don't want to do, like getting up at that 4 a.m. for that workout or going to your AA meeting or seeking treatment. What it does is that it ends up building every single time that you override that little voice that tells you, oh, I don't want to do it. I want to stay in bed. When you override that, like, no, bitch, we're doing this. And then it gets stronger and stronger each day. However, the moment that you go back, just a little like, oh, no, let's take this day off. Oh, no, let's take this day off. You just reverse everything that you had just done.
It becomes your new pattern.
Exactly. So it's crazy though. So it's something like a treatment program. Even though I'm 11 and a half years into this, daily, I'm just like the newcomer.
Every
Which
day
is
she's
wild.
posting her same thing every morning.
It's actually different.
Every day.
That's why I got 11 and a half years, dog.
Good for you. It's awesome.
Thank you. But it's
Congratulations.
Yeah. It's actually a big deal.
It is. One day at a time.
One day at a time,
that's right.
baby.
Keep coming back. How long have you been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
About 7 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I like hearing that. So I've always had it in the back of my mind that I've wanted to get my skin in the game. But I'm
With your
scared.
wrestling background, that will come into play. Trust me. Any athletics come into play to a point.
What made you want to tap in there 7 years ago? Because at 7 years ago, you were what, 55? No, I'm
Oh,
sorry, 45,
Jesus.
44, 45.
He's not-
I'm not good. I'm not a
Wrong
mathematician.
way.
45.
Yeah.
Or 44.
45. It was
Okay,
actually my
see?
daughter. My daughter
Okay.
was about 7 years old, and she was training, and so I was watching her here locally in Irvine, and I was at that point in life. I graduated, and I was looking for a next level thing, and I said, you know what, I think I like
Wow.
this, and so I tried it. And also the reason why is because she was getting ready to compete, and she asked me to compete with her. And so I did it,
cool.
and immediately never turned back. And so we competed together. It was a great bonding.
Oh, that's
moment for
cool.
her. And so now my wife and son train. So it's a
Oh,
whole
that's amazing.
family thing. But it was in line. I did martial arts before in some
Oh,
capacity.
okay.
So, but this was different, and I said, wow, everything about the culture and the competitiveness, and nothing is easy.
For sure.
You can be smashed 5 minutes earlier.
Or by someone super smaller than you. And
Super
yep.
teen. If anyone is
Yeah.
out there with BJJ, one of the scariest thing is a teenager blue belt, because they've been training for like 7, 8, 12 years
Yeah.
prior. so they're,
Yeah.
to me, they're one of the most scariest people on the mats are a teen blue belt.
It's funny because Dana White has mentioned this in a podcast or some interview where, he said team sports are really great, because it teaches you like camaraderie and a lot of things. But putting your child into jiu-jitsu is something that, when you're a kid, you end up stop playing soccer or stop wrestling or you stop playing football. Jiu-jitsu you have for the rest of your life. And it builds a lot of like emotional intelligence as well, because there's a lot of respect amongst the sport that you need to learn. Also, it humbles you really quickly. It teaches you so many aspects of getting through that uncomfortable situations and those spaces that you're going to have to endure through life in general. But it also teaches you like perseverance and so many things that you're able to then take with you in all stages of your life. And I really agree. I mean, I haven't done jiu-jitsu myself. That's why I think I've always had it in my head. Like I kind of want to tap my toe into it a little bit. But I understand what he's saying with that, because you mentioned your kids are in it. Well, they can continue on forever.
Yeah.
There's no stopping.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
It's never too late.
It's not.
You're not even 45 yet.
I know.
I haven't done it yet because
Tell us, Chad, why?
it's the same reason that I've always had, and you've heard it before.
I have, yes.
Why?
The awkward positions that, stuff
Oh.
that's in your face all the time.
Yeah.
Other people's butts and balls and, stuff. Just stuff.
that's where that threshold.
Of
This-
Yeah.
Yes, there's yes. Have you ever
7
thought?
years
have,
later.
have you ever thought like when like I know this is probably a horrible question.
And
for
we're
you.
derailing.
I'm gonna derail.
And we're
It wouldn't be the Hopeaholics if I didn't
Earmuffs.
Yeah.
derail. Have you ever felt like just like flicking the guy's balls when it was right there? Like, have you thought about it?
Well, I do have a tournament coming up, so I may, if it means winning gold.
That might be the ticket. Just a little, because it doesn't take much. Just a.
That and getting expelled from the federation. But
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Maybe,
can we go back
Yeah,
to the
maybe
book?
your mental capacity is not really meant for
Not ready-
jiu-jitsu,
not ready for
because
it.
I don't think these guys are
private
thinking
lessons,
about.
maybe.
Yeah.
Private.
No, because those guys will beat. Okay, so I actually do want to go back to Brazilian jiu-jitsu. My nephew does it, and he does tournaments and everything. He's really good. So our friend over here that died from fentanyl, he was really into Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He did tournaments. He was really doing well. His trainer, coach, the head guy, is a black belt, or whatever the highest belt is you can be.
Is it? It's black, right?
Well, coral is the ultimate. There's a red belt.
Oh
coral
yeah,
belt.
he was.
Those are
He's not
master
that.
levels.
He's not that.
You don't see
This
many of
guy is probably about $180, and he's taken down all these big guys.
For sure.
those. Yeah, that's why jiu-jitsu is crazy. It doesn't matter your size. It doesn't matter your weight. It has it's all technique.
and
And that's why it was originally designed for in Japan for the smaller, weaker person to be able to battle. Because I've done other martial arts, and if you're like 250 pounds and you're fighting a really skilled 130-pound kickboxer, that 250 pounder, if you get a good hit, can probably knock them out whether they have skill or not. And so, but with jiu-jitsu, it's about leverage and submission tactics. And by the way, for kids, you get a lot of kids there with ADHD. Research does show that, especially for males, that kids engage in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, they lower their symptoms of ADHD. You get a lot of kids with several autism spectrum disorders, and definitely for bullying and confidence, especially for women. And any women that have any past physical trauma because of those positions, that level of discomfort. My wife in particular was so adamant about not wanting to try it because of that. She was watching her kids and someone sitting on your chest, or you're right, and all those other awkward positions. But now she's the one that gets me on Sundays to go.
nice.
And so it's really huge, like I said, for mind, body, and spirit, and the culture as well is just really huge and supportive. So,
I have a
This
question.
guy's a big guy.
Wait, I have a question.
230.
Tying it back into your book, what in jiu-jitsu or martial arts is kind of similarities or coincide with addiction, or the reason why you wanted to even write a book, especially because you don't suffer from substance abuse yourself. So I guess it's hard for me to understand why someone would be so interested in a topic, especially when they're not either struggling or your wife isn't, or having that close relationship with someone that is struggling. To have something so beautifully done is kind of mind-blowing to me.
well, the answer to your first question is how jiu-jitsu relates to the mental health. Is there's always solutions, right? No matter what, right? Nothing. The disease looks different across the board, but there's always solutions if you really truly look for it. So that's the biggest thing that I take in relation to that. The other one was reiterate your second question of why I would get interested.
Yeah. I mean, I know that it was because that's where you studied, but for you to interpret it so beautifully without having a direct, like, either your sibling or somebody so close to you or wife to make you want to even write a book like this is interesting to me.
Well, I have had family members.
Okay.
Just to clarify, with mental health struggles as well and substance abuse issues. And
That makes more sense.
one of the things someone asked me, "Are you in recovery?" I said no, but I definitely could have fallen down that path.
Oh, yeah.
I tell people
yeah.
I'm not an angel. Had my college days and so forth, and it was definitely available and there. But where my true, authentic interest came is through all these talks on different families. I realized, whether it be the NAMI group, whether it be in the treatment recovery, giving talks at churches, is that these questions kept being reoccurring. Like, what do I do? Is she suicidal? Well, I know she's upstairs taking Xanax and alcohol, but as long as she's not on the street being trafficked. You know, I know my grandson's in his apartment, not going to school, using that money for marijuana and just sitting all day, but as long as he's not homeless. And so you got these families that were really paralyzed and stuck. And so my interventions were also very patternistic and consistent. And so I would get family members and say, "Hey, Dr. Brian, do you have this on a slide? Do you have this on a piece of paper?" And I actually had a family member said, "Do you have this in some type of manual?" And I, working in recovery for, almost 15 years and working with all these families, I thought something was out there. I said, "No, there's got to be something out there, a manual of some sort." And they said, "Well, you get things on how to set boundaries, or create self-worth, or whatever else, but there's not anything like a step-by-step manual." And then I looked for myself and I didn't find anything. And so I was very surprised, and I just started typing during the pandemic. Because I wanted to write this book probably several years before 2020. And then it was on a March day of 2020. I had like 8 cancellations for 48 hours straight. And I said, "This is the time." And I literally started typing, and it was all this narrative in my head of these. It was already planned in my head because everything was outlined. It was very systematic of the question and how I'd respond to it. And so it literally, for about 6 weeks straight, for about 10 plus hours, I typed out the whole book. It wasn't finished, of course, in fine form, but it was in its raw form because it was all these dialogue and these narratives I was having with all these family members across the board. And the last thing too with the disease is it doesn't discriminate, as you know,
Yep.
across socioeconomic status, culture, race. And the disease to me, and I get this discussion a lot, is I don't get in debate whether it's the real disease or not. To me, we all have our own version of disease, right? The disease is any entity that's chronic and causes impairment in our life. And so, yes, it could be a medical condition such as diabetes, hypertension. It could be a psychiatric condition such as substance use disorder, depression, anxiety, PTSD. But it's any entity that causes impairment. So selfishness, if it causes impairment in your life, could be your disease. Racism, right? Overworking, low self-worth. And so we all have our version of disease, and therefore we all have our own version of recovery,
Sure.
which is an intentional plan in place for healthier living. And so in the recovery world, disease is not at ease, right?
Yep.
So it's any entity.
We
that
call it a dis-ease.
Yep. And so, and then it doesn't define you. You take out the disease, as you know, the disease is always the quarter doing push-ups, right?
Yeah.
And so it's separate, doesn't define anyone. It is just this entity that you've got to learn how to manage and understand its capabilities, its patterns, and its language. And that's why that I Am Your Disease poem is very, very powerful.
I know. I wanted to find.
I've definitely read it
is
before.
Yeah.
I want it to be put up at least when you're when we drop your podcast, so that because I know people are gonna want to like Google it, and I don't
You
want
know,
them to have. I
You
don't
know
know.
the exact page number.
Exact page number?
I know.
I think it's chapter 3-ish.
Okay.
Or, yeah.
That way
Chapter
we
3.
can put it up because
I want
I
you
don't
guys to
want
notice
them-
that he said ish. Chapter 3-ish. That's what I always say when I don't want to be late somewhere. We're gonna be there
I
about
got it. It's chapter. Yeah, it is chapter 3, page 47. I am your
Okay,
disease.
47. I'm not going to forget that.
There
page
you go.
47. Read it. Are you gonna read it to us?
No, it's quite long. So
Yeah.
I don't want to like mess it.
I mean, this all boils down to consistency. I mean, everything. Right? I mean, you consistently have to go to meetings.
Yeah.
You consistently have to do prayer and meditation. Even if you're sick, you consistently have to get dialysis.
Yeah.
If you have cancer, you have to consistently go for therapy. It's just consistency. If you want to have a decent figure, what do? You got to consistently go to the gym. That's
What
just
if
life.
I consistently go to the gym
Yeah.
and I continue with my bad eating habits?
Well, then
will
good
I have a
luck.
good figure?
No.
You can't outtrain
No.
a bad diet.
No, you cannot do that. You have to.
Why can't I?
Well,
I
because-
just said it. You can't outtrain a bad diet.
Yeah.
What if I do 10,000?
I'll bet your
10,000
whole entire treatment facility and your house, and I'll take
Can't
it.
do it.
What if I do enough cardio?
Trust
Yes,
me.
Then I'll take you.
Enough cardio
I'll
to
take a large person.
8,000 calories
Yes.
worth of cardio, and I eat 8,000 calories every day.
You cannot outtrain a bad diet.
And go to
It's
the
been
gym.
it's been proven.
No, I got to go with her still. You can't.
Yeah,
train
you
a bad
can't.
diet.
Good
But-
luck.
But if you're doing cardio and you're 20 pounds over, I'll take you over someone who's not doing cardio.
What do you guys consider a bad diet? Can I eat 2,000 calories worth of donuts and hamburgers every day and go to the gym?
Good luck. Have fun seeing the heart doctor.
Yeah.
Your cholesterol is going to be out of control. Stents are going to be going into your arteries.
No-brainer.
So good luck. Don't come at me with your diet nonsense
Consistency.
because it's you know it already. So it's funny that you're trying to play the little.
I'm
devil's
just going with the
advocate.
law of thermodynamics.
Oh, the 2,000 calories in or
Calories in versus calories out.
Yeah. I like
It's a law. It's so a law
Okay,
is a law.
So you tell me your 2,000 calories of like
I'm just
nice.
we're talking about he just talking about a physique. I could still get a physique. Maybe the internals might be jacked.
Right, because you're the amount of like what you're
Okay,
putting
we
in.
derailed. Let's
Yeah,
go
you
back
totally
to your
did.
amazing book. though.
I'll tell you why I really like the book a lot is that you really made it simple.
Yeah.
for anybody to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people, like I said, they get scared.
Yeah.
We're scared. We live, it's natural to get up and be in fear.
Yeah.
That's our natural state as human beings. I think is being fucking scared
Which,
for some reason.
you know what? I really like that, Shane. And I want to ask you a question because a family member, my family members, not you, my family members, but any family member of a loved one who's suffering, they are going to be in fear.
Yes.
The entire time that person is suffering. So what do you recommend to them that they do?
Pick up his book.
2 milligrams a day of Xanax.
Definitely
not that.
No, but
What do you
that's why-
recommend that they do for themselves? The family member, not the addict.
Well, the upfront knowledge, as you all know,
Yes.
the 3 inevitable consequences to untreated mental health or addiction is you end up in jail, institutionalized, or you lose your life. Homelessness is temporary. Eventually, if you don't get help, you'll end up in jail, hospital, lose your life. And when I tell people, being a parent myself, and a lot of the biggest fears of parents to ever outlive your children, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think as parents we can ever accept that reality.
Yeah.
But we have to, emotionally, but we have to accept the reality. Is because that right there, the fear is what prevents families from getting their loved one help. Like the example I gave of the daughter upstairs drinking alcohol and Xanax, she could die up there for all you know. And so the longer someone stays in that state of being, the harder it is to get out of there. Neuroplasticity is a great concept, right? We can, our brain's ability to heal, but still the longer someone is in there, you create this pattern, this narrative, and it's harder to break free. But it is. I've had grandparents come to treatment who get sober after drinking a bottle of vodka for 40 years. So it's never too late. That's the gift of neuroplasticity. And so that's the one thing I would tell them is you have to accept the reality, not emotionally. Because like I said, shame and all those other things and fear are the biggest barriers for people taking that next step. And back to what you were saying too, is that's what I write about is the consistency, but I say structure and routine. And that's why I think the pandemic was so disruptive. Right? I literally saw people, high-level people, successful, that were coming to see me because the gym was closed. And it was such a routine part of their life. It had, structure, routine. And so structure and routine, that's why your recovery program, I guarantee you, they're not waking up and not having an agenda. They know what they're doing, when they're taking their meds, when they're going to sleep, when they're seeing psychiatrists, when they're going to AA meetings and so forth. So structure, routine, and I ask accountability. And when people ask me, like, what's one reason, Dr. Brian, I should go to a meeting or therapy? I say, if there's one word, you gave me only one word, it's accountability. That's it. Right? Yes, you can have fellowship, commitments, and all those other things, but accountability is, at the end of the day, the element that's going to be critical for people with long-term success. So, you guys are all saying some really, really powerful stuff, and I'm really very humbled of what your feedback with is, because that's what it was really designed for. You'll notice that there's no research dates or anything like that, or a bunch of medical terminology, because I want it to be like a timeless manual, because 50 years ago, the disease is the same. 50 years from now, of depression, for example, 50 years from now, depression is going to look the same.
Yeah.
The treatment modalities and approaches may change, or medications, or even the substances. But I want it to be a timeless manual where someone like 10 or 12 years old can still read it and understand it and employ some of its techniques.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's really important. And I haven't come across something like this in my long years.
11 and a half.
Yes. Well, I should have like 20. But
You
yeah,
should
we
have
stumbled.
20. I should have like 27.
Right?
I think. Yeah.
We would be in the
I
20s.
got sober in 1996 the first time.
Yeah.
Quite a long time ago.
Same.
That's
Well, not 1996.
No, you were
But yeah.
still.
You know what? When I talk to clients on the phone, and I have a mother crying, and she is bloody desperate,
Yeah.
man. She is desperate. I just tell her, you got to do what's in your heart. I mean, I don't really like the codependency thing, because here's the thing. If that daughter upstairs is taking Xanax and drinking, and she does die eventually, I mean, what if you kick her out and she dies? How do you feel? Compared to how you feel if she dies upstairs when you're doing what's in your heart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a
tough one.
it's a real tough one.
Yes.
It's a real tough one. So I always banned it. I might be wrong, and you really got me thinking now that, should I be harder? Because I tell the mother, I says, you know what? The success rate of this fucking disease is so low. It's so low. Death is so real, and failure is so there that do what's in your heart. At least you can go to bed at night.
Yeah. I could tell you this, and
Can you combat what he just said?
I could tell you this, and you can all probably attest to it. But one of the things I say in there is some of the worst places you can end up are some of the best places you can end up. And I've seen all kinds of different cases, whether it be someone homeless and psychotic, and there was one female particular that was wandering the streets of Mexico trying to push drugs. Here she is, a South Orange County blonde female.
Wow.
And the cartel said, hey, what are you doing? Get out of here or else. And that got her to come back and get sober. And so some of the, like I said, best situations have gotten people, and we have to accept that potential consequence that she may be homeless. Like I said, some of the best cases where someone was homeless and so forth, or in jail, and at that moment of desperation. The other thing, I'm sorry, I'm going blank there, with that is, one of my must-knows, if I may ask you again, is when someone can struggle chronically, long-lasting, 3 words of why they can struggle chronically. When I ask family members.
They're enabling them to.
Okay, 3 words.
That was
I
your
don't know.
3 words.
I don't know.
Why they're why?
Why, when I ask family members, why can your daughter continue or son continue?
Because you're paying for them.
Because she
Struggle.
can.
Yeah.
Because they
can.
can.
Because it works.
You're the first person ever to get it completely right. I have to say that is because they can, right? You're the first person, because there's all these other things like, well, because and so forth, but because they can. It's true if you really think about it. You know,
Yeah, because they're getting paid by mommy and daddy to live up in their room.
Well, any family, yeah, exactly. Where's the, if someone
Where's the accountability? 0.
if someone goes to treatment, right, and leaves after 4 days and goes back home, where's the motivation to
Totally.
stay sober? If someone
0.
loses their 5th job because of a DUI, right, and they lose their car and you give them a transportation,
Totally.
right, where's the motivation to stay sober and healthy? If someone continue to cheat on you
Yep.
in a relationship you keep taking back, where's the motivation to make
Stop
those
doing it.
changes and stay truthful? It's because they can, right? In any family, no matter how toxic the family dynamic, you pick apart that blueprint somewhere in some form or fashion. Someone is participating,
Yep.
right? There's that saying, you didn't cause it, can't cure it, you can't control it, but you perpetuate it in
sure.
some form or fashion. And that's why everyone in that immediate family unit has to assume an equal share of responsibility and work 100%. So if
I
you
don't
have-
disagree, but I considered that to be more love focused.
No.
You know what I mean?
Which part?
Well, the part where he says each family member has to have a part of it. I think that if each family member gives that person lots of love, so they could drag
What kind of love though?
Yeah.
they could drag their knuckles on the street, homeless for 20 years as well,
Mhm.
or they could be upstairs in the room for 20 years, and they could die upstairs in the room or get there on the street. What's your heart going to let you live with?
Sure.
That's where I'm at
Sure,
right now
sure.
with the parent. That's what I was.
Yeah, but
asking.
it's also like depends case by case, because sometimes the parents are in denial. Like they're not going to put their kid out on the street because they're not going to be able to handle what happens to their child,
Yeah.
because they don't think their child is as bad as they are. So we're really good at manipulating our parents, being like, we're okay, and we're really not. So it depends on the age. There's so many case by case situations. I mean,
My thought with that, if I may, is the difference between those two scenarios is the person that's homeless, when they continue to stay homeless, is they increase the probability of them being put in a situation where they'd be maybe forced to get help, whether it be an illegal issue, or
Sure.
they end up in a hospital. And I think that's one of the bigger differences there, is because I believe, and I may be just a little bit biased because of the area I'm in, but I believe people truly cannot do true homelessness. Right. I've had one person say, I was homeless for a weekend. I said, why? Well, I was in a tent in my parents' backyard. That's not homelessness. Homelessness is dumpster diving, skid row, homeless. And what I find is people truly cannot do long-term homelessness.
For sure.
We know there's a lot of homeless people out there, but I can almost guarantee you they would want to be somewhere else.
100%.
True people cannot do hospital or jail. Right. Yes, there's people that can stay incarcerated,
agree.
but they truly can't do that. And so that's what I mean by that point of desperation. I see some of the people in a behavioral unit which is great for people that are high level, but sometimes they say that's more traumatic than jail. And so that's the leverage and power that I try to give family members to put in. And that's where I see that there's that major difference there, is that she's not being put in a situation where opening the probability of her getting that help, right? Other than that consequence, it's because that family members coming from a good place. That's my biggest belief. You cannot love someone out of the disease.
you can't do.
No.
Yeah, you can't do it.
No.
And
I mean,
so you can still come from love,
Yeah, it sucks.
but like I said, there has to be rules there. So
That's
it's
a
a tough
tough one.
situation. Trust me,
That's
it's
a tough one.
situation.
I like
It
what you're
is-
saying
it-
about rules and regulations. He's right. Everyone needs the rules and regulations.
Relationship.
In a relationship.
Yeah,
Rules and
yeah.
regulations. Right from a dog to a human being. You need rules and regulations to
But like,
live
look at
properly.
this is what sucks. Look at my brother right now with my parents.
I agree.
My parents will
That's where I was thinking.
never ever put him out,
Mm-hmm.
because they cannot live with putting those types of him in those situations which he needs to be put in.
And-
I believe.
that is a very common scenario,
Yeah.
right? And that could be cultural too, right?
Yeah.
We just don't do that. We don't give up, and it's
Right.
it's
That's what's so sad about
an
this disease.
education about
It's
the
it's
disease.
not giving up though. It's not giving up. It's setting an appropriate boundary. I believe that people have given up. Let's go back to the Shane situation or your situation of the alcoholic taking Xanax up in the bedroom. Well, if I continue to allow that to happen in my home, I have given up hope that that person is truly ever going to get better, and I have settled into the fact that this is all it's ever going to be. Now me as the parent of this person, and I fast forward, what is going to happen to this person when I die? They're going to die too. Or they're going to be homeless after I die because they're not going to have me anymore to support and help them. But I'm with you on the fact that we need to set those boundaries, because if people don't have consequences, behaviors don't change. That's why I don't like what has happened in the United States, and especially California over the last few years, is that there's no consequences for people's behavior. They can shoot fentanyl right on the side of the road. Sure, they might get stopped occasionally. The cops have kind of just given up, though. And if they do find the drugs on them, it's a traffic ticket citation. Show up to court. People don't ever show up to court. Consequences aren't there. I got sober because the consequences were so severe. It was, Chad, you're either going to state prison or you're going to treatment. You pick today. So back to that person, I think that you're right. You need to set the boundary. You need to tell them that you're going to treatment today, or you can no longer live in my house. I love you, but I'm not going to continue to love you to death.
But that's why I think this book is so important, because countering what you're saying is it's very difficult for the parents to do that to a child, or to I'm not a child anymore, a fucking adult, an actual adult that should not be living with mom and dad. That's what is terrible about this disease. But having something like this is important because it breaks down what the disease is telling them.
And the other thing, part of it too, is we think about they end up in jail, hospital, or they lose their life, or homelessness, but we don't think about the other collateral effects, right? Sibling relationships impaired, divorces. I've seen.
Oh, for sure. Children.
Oh, I've seen some really, really angry adult children.
Sure.
Right? We call them the hero child. That's the one to bring balance in a system. You got the person struggling with the problem, and then you have the hero child who can do no wrong.
Yeah.
And so they're the ones where you don't have to focus on. And
Oh, yeah.
they end up being the resentful child.
For
I've
sure.
seen people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s that say, I didn't
Oh
have
my
my
God,
parents in my
totally
life because you were
crazy.
so involved with Daniel or
Oh
what
my
have
God.
you.
Yeah.
And so, and then the other part too, with the person struggling upstairs, sometimes we assume they don't want our help. They're happy. They want to be content. They don't want to change. And that's not the case. A lot of times they're just suffering. They don't just know what that blueprint looks like. And like for people that commit suicide, it's not that most people don't want to die. They just want that pain to stop. And those people suffering up there, they don't want to continue to suffer.
Sure.
But it looks like that they want to, because that disease of isolation, it says, get out of here. It's a disease of isolation.
Yeah.
And so,
That's one of the myths in your book.
I have a family friend, my parents' friend. The one kid has cancer. The other son didn't. And the same thing, the son was neglected.
Yep.
So this can happen with any
Oh my gosh. And so is
life-threatening
the son.
with any life-threatening disease.
So the son.
Started doing drugs. He started drinking, feeling left out, not a part of the family.
So they were
Meanwhile,
paying attention too
to
much
the one
to
that
the
had
brother
cancer,
that's dying.
well, now he's in remission. He's completely cancer-free, and the other one's drug addict.
Oh no.
You know
So
what I'm
now
saying?
is the family's focus and attention
You
on
know what?
the-
I've lost track.
Oh.
But
How old are they?
The kids are probably 16, 17, 18 years old, around that age.
It's
Yeah.
so wild. And you know what? Damn, like parents, they're just doing the best they
Doing
can.
the best, man. It's tough. That's
Like,
what I'm saying. It's a nightmare. Yeah.
That's terrible. Messy, man.
Well, there's such a small success rate. It's
Yeah.
like it's such a sad 5% success rate to get off of the drugs. So where do you turn? That's why I love this, because we had a few people on here with books. I couldn't.
Me neither.
I just couldn't. You know what I'm saying? This
It's
I
just
can.
hard, yeah.
This I can.
Yeah.
I can this. Thank you.
When you're bringing that up too, one thing I want to mention too is when I was coming up with the title, so a lot of people think treatment is this formal treatment, come
Yeah.
here to this place. And so, yes, that is one avenue. And the reason why I wrote that is most people that this book was geared for were people in crisis, that if they don't get help right away, something bad's going to
Yeah.
happen. But it's
Yeah.
also could be how to get your resistant loved one to a point of accepting help.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's not just formal treatment,
Mhm.
but to a point where, okay, I need help. Give them that option. And that's where the family. So my intervention is not on the person struggling, it's on the family unit.
Mm-hmm.
Because if
I
they
like
can be in treatment for a year, but if they're going into that same family system, they haven't grown, evolved, and changed and
So
educate
true.
themselves, the probability of long-term success dramatically decreases.
So true.
And so that's why family
It's
intervention, and that's where
Geared.
this is geared towards, is intervention. on the
I
family
like that,
unit.
and I do that as well. I tell the family, please take this time. I know it's difficult, but take this time to get healthy. Start doing exercise, start walking, start reading a little more, start singing. You know, start doing things to get your mind occupied and make yourself better. And that internal peace that you're going to bring for yourself, you're going to pass that along to the family.
Exactly.
And it's contagious.
Yeah, you know, and this is a family disease.
Yeah.
So here's the other part. I want to talk about the treatment part because that's what I do for a living. That's all I've ever done my entire adult life.
Okay.
So 24 years owning and operating or even working in an addiction treatment center. You know, treatment is not just for the person suffering, the addict or the alcoholic or the person with the mental health issues. We've always been family based, meaning that, you know, you can do all of this amazing stuff, right? We can get the person in treatment. Maybe you don't even do any of this stuff. Maybe the addict's just like, hey, I need help. And you're like, sure, I didn't even know you were using. You know, I mean, that happens.
Yeah, for sure.
That happens. And then people get to treatment. There's times I've had people drop people off at treatment families and they're like, fix them. We'll see them when we get back. Now, here's the thing. We can get the addict in here. We can get them clean and sober. We can even get them to change a lot of their life. If I send them right back to that exact same family system without anybody else doing any work, I'm setting that person up for failure
Yeah.
because they will fall back right into the same role that they were playing. 90 days of treatment's not, it's just, it wouldn't even, not even 90 days of treatment's going to be enough for this individual, right? If the family does zero work. Because they'll come back, they'll fall right back in, and then when they haven't changed their stuff. So in cases like this, when the family's unwilling to do work, then it's kind of, hey guys, you're an adult now. It's time for you to learn how to live life on your own, and you change the family system. But the family work is so important. If you want, you know, that's why we do family involvement here. What do you think of family involvement in the roles?
It's critically important. It is so vital and critically important. And one of the things that I, in the hundreds of clients and hundreds of family dynamics, when they do enter treatment, right, I would say about 98% of the time that there is some level of family involvement, whether it be a spouse, a partner, a friend. I could literally count on top of or in one hand how many people came just completely solo, that no, I'm done with my family. I have the money to pay for treatment. Those are very rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their chance of long-term success still isn't, it's possible that someone can live an independent life and develop their strong recovery program. But I would say 90% of the time, some level of a family system, and a family system could be a best friend, could be a coworker. I had a landlord come family treatment. Didn't know that dynamic, but there he was on screen, the landlord.
Yeah.
No questions asked. And so, but it's critically important. And to say that as well is, as you know, this disease can fracture the closest of families.
Yeah.
But the recovery process can actually bring families closer together. And I've seen it. I've seen estranged parents for 12 years of a divorce come closer together. Now share carpool here from LA down to South Orange County. And so just recognize that no matter how toxic the family unit is. And like I said, everyone can do their part. And that's one of the big things is I talk about a rowboat, right? To maximize distance is everyone has to assume equal responsibility and work 100% on it. That's how you gain most speed and distance. Same thing with family unit. Everyone brings something different. Maybe a mom was traumatized as a child and has unhealthy enabling. Maybe a father was in a culture where we foo-foo mental health. Maybe, and so everyone brings something to the table, and we have to recognize what that is and work 100% on that share.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot as well. I always mention that, it's up to the it's up to the parents when you're a kid to build that family around you, to that protection. When you get older, and I explain to a lot of these 30-year-olds, did your family fail you in that regard? Some do. Some family members, like you said, they don't understand you got to build a compound around your kid to make them grow healthy. When you're older, that's up to you to do. You have to gravitate towards people differently. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
One.
But I think the beautiful thing is there's a solution.
Yeah.
And it works.
There is.
Multiple
And-
solutions.
Multiple
And
solutions.
it works 100% of the time if you're willing to
Yeah,
put in
man.
the work.
I agree.
What's the quote of the book?
Well, the quote of
The
the
exact
book is, rarely have we seen
No person.
a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who can either will not or cannot become capable of
Yeah, mentally,
Me-
like something like
being honest. Honest is the most important part of this program. Well, I mean, in Narcotics Anonymous, we call it the how. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. With these, we are well on our way. So if you can come to be honest, open-minded, and willing, you got a real shot at recovery, man.
It
You know,
works if
you're
you
sitting
work
out you're sitting in a room of this guy to my right sold his $80,000 Hummer for a hit of crack rock, maybe a week's worth of crack.
Oh, yeah.
This girl, went out on cocaine and alcohol runs, and I was an IV meth user who, quote unquote, worked for the CIA while I had a lot of meth in my.
Possibly served in the military as well. We're not sure.
Yeah, well, it's all off books.
Definitely not.
All off books.
Definitely not.
Well, you never know.
But we do recover.
We do.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
we do recover, and I can say that mine was, yes, I was a meth-induced schizophrenia.
Yeah. Here we go.
I know what it feels like to be in a psychosis and not be in reality.
Yeah. Scary.
And and I don't take meds today. It was meth-induced. So if you would have diagnosed me, if I would have walked into your office though, and you wouldn't have known I was on meth, which I don't know how anybody wouldn't know I was on meth, but yet you would have diagnosed me as schizophrenic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's promising news for a lot of
think
people.
so.
What I
I
said is
think
that
so.
substance use
That- yeah.
psychosis, and at least in my work, was probably 80% or more.
Which is wild. And to me, that's like, that's a beautiful thing because of remove the substance. Then,
You remove the psychosis.
right.
I will tell you, they would always hit me with a dose of Zyprexa to pull me out of it. For
Yeah, which is very common. Even if they're going to treat the symptom, not the actual diagnosis.
Yeah.
So that's not uncommon in the recovery arena with psychiatric help.
some food, some
Rest.
rest,
Sleep.
some sleep,
Water.
water.
Basic
I mean, yeah.
necessities that you forego when you're
I will
out
tell you,
running,
like
gunning.
one of my worst.
Insane.
I didn't sleep for 14 days.
Wow.
I'm not sure how much food I ate during that time. Wasn't much, and my water consumption was
0.
very low.
So the fact that you were alive.
the water came in the syringe that had the meth in it. That was, it was
Ugly.
ugly.
But you made it. That's the great
I'm
thing.
here.
Exactly. And
You
if
made it
there's
out.
solution
And there's a
and
lot of
people
hope
like
out
you,
I'd like
writing
to see
something
the
like this,
numbers
so thank
on
you.
the ones that's surviving with family. Family, good family, good family, good family.
Yeah.
I'd like to see those
That's
numbers.
that goes to show what he said earlier on. This disease does not discriminate. I come from an awesome family. My family.
No,
my
I meant
parents-
survival.
Yeah, but it goes where. What do you mean survival?
I meant survival. I meant the addict surviving. The addict that makes
that
it.
would be so hard to actually
How
take.
are they with the family? Are they with their family?
I don't know how you. Actually
Well, I don't
take
want to
that.
discourage people that have a
Yeah.
bad family though
Exactly.
either,
No,
because we
I don't
can It is.
That's
It's
a hard
helpful though.
number.
You know, this stuff like this
Yes.
for the family, right?
Yes, exactly.
If the family can get involved quicker,
Yeah.
And get
we
healthier.
can keep people from dying. I don't know if you're aware of this or why this podcast even exists. I lost my son-in-law to fentanyl
Didn't know that.
on 9/11 of 2022. My daughter found him dead.
Oh.
And you know, I've worked in treatment my whole entire life. I'm not sure why I said that, but the reason how many addicts' lives can we save if families read this book and we do the stuff before we find them dead?
Yeah.
Because I knew he was struggling, and why didn't I do some of the stuff? For real. I mean, you know, I question that stuff to myself. Sure, you can. Everybody's going to, and people
Yeah.
can say, yeah, you could have done the stuff, and maybe he still would have died, and that's possible too. But my point is that you can do stuff to get your family members out of this crisis,
Yeah.
and it's not a joke right now. It hasn't been a joke for 5-6 years. Or more, 7 years since fentanyl hit our market. 300 people are dying every single day. And that's why we exist, because we want to be a voice for the people that have lost their lives and break the stigma that, you know what, to be honest with you, I look at myself, the three of us, and I'm like, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to have a mental health disorder and a substance use disorder, especially when you get clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it. No shame in it. No shame in asking for help. No shame in getting help.
Yeah.
Because, man, I wouldn't want it any other way. I think if I'd have never had this mental health and addiction, I think I'd have been an asshole. I really don't think I would have been as loving and kind of a person as I am today because of the depths of hell that I've had to go through to get to where I am today.
Which is called the gifts of sobriety.
Yeah.
Gifts
Right.
of recovery.
The promises.
The promises.
For sure.
I do have a must know in there is you have to release yourself from guilt.
Oh,
That's
so good.
This disease, if it's a car, it's oil and gas,
Ugh,
is
so
fear and
good.
guilt. And so guilt of having done or not done something. That's one of the biggest barriers to getting help is I'm guilty because I wasn't present. I was guilty because I was alcoholic in their childhood years. I was guilty. I feel guilt because of the divorce, or I brought in that step parent or whatever else. And I find that most of the family members come from a good place. I say that just because you come from a good place doesn't always mean it's the healthy and the right place. And so I've had family members who smoked out with their teenager because I want to teach them a responsible way to smoke marijuana. Right?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, now,
I mean,
That's happens
said-
a lot.
I said, did you mean harm? Did you mean for your loved one to become an addict? No. Then you got to release yourself from guilt.
yeah.
People can get this on Amazon, correct?
Amazon, yeah, and Barnes and Nobles, but Amazon on paperback and Kindle form is
Right.
probably the easiest.
I think it's really, really important. I think it's a great, simplistic way to help a lot of people, regardless if they are the ones struggling or if they're trying to help the one struggling.
you.
My
Both
question,
people.
my last question. Well, I don't know if it's my last question, but like, do you have this on an audiobook format yet?
That is so language, probably Spanish is I've gotten requests for that, and then on audio are my next adventure and a workbook. I've been asked.
Oh yeah, a workbook is
A workbook,
workbook
dude.
would be a kill because
Okay.
a workbook would be really good. Just because like I sponsor other women and we go through the steps and we have our way that we do it, but I always think I'm a fan of like pen to paper type
Yeah.
things.
So that's what's on the horizon for that. But audio, Spanish initially, and then a workbook or.
Please let me be the voice for your audio.
No,
What, bro? I got a good voice for audio.
Well, we appreciate you big time.
you have a good
Yeah.
Thank
face
you
for
so much.
radio, bro.
Really,
Thank
really
you.
appreciate
Yeah,
what you're doing.
thank you for coming in.
Yeah,
man.
thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Much appreciate
Yeah.
all of you as well.
Yeah, thank you.